We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday. I want to thank Alona for being on the program yesterday. Great guest. We talked about it on the show. I'm on her podcast, and I believe it was released yesterday or today. So go check out her podcast, and I'll be on there. And she's still more entertaining than I am, but still check it out. It was a good time to do, and she does a great job. Today, we have Eric on the show. Eric's a well known guest to have on the show. It's Eric from Iowa. Eric, welcome back from the what's the nickname of the state of Iowa? We have the Gopher State here, and you got the Corn Cob State in Nebraska.
I'm not sure. I'll have to stop and think about it.
How about the red
It'll come to me, but I
dipshits?
haven't thought about that in years.
How about the red dipshits?
I mean, that would fit. There's a lot of them around here.
Now, of course, you're not one of those folks, and there's a lot of good people in Iowa. I don't mean to make fun of everybody. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Some shit hit the fan yesterday, and we're going to talk about it. I want to bring up one thing because I think it's kind of funny. You maybe remember me talking about a former guest on the program, HVAC Jeff, the Trumplefuck we had on the program.
I remember HVAC.
Now, if you heard the show, you can probably agree with HVAC that in that debate he just tore me up. It wasn't even close. He he just tore me up, so to speak. But anyway, when we did this, he said, "Now you got to come on one of my lives." I said, "Okay." And then he got kind of spooked by all the followers kind of coming at him, and he tried to put that live thing off to the side. Well, he got his courage up again and asked me to come on, and I did. I was there for about a half hour. I was a lot more aggressive than I was in the podcast, and I got reported by a million people. And then he dropped me off trying to save me from getting banned or whatever, and I appreciate that. And that was it. I feel like I accomplished. I lived up to my promise. I said I'd go on. I went on. I made them look foolish, and then I got kicked off. So okay, we're done. He sent me about 7 emails today. Why don't you do a live and I'll debate you on there? I go, no, I'm not doing that. He goes, come on, just debate. Don't worry about getting kicked off. Just use your backup. I go, I don't have a backup. She goes, yeah, you do. I go, no, I've never had a backup. I'm not going to have a backup. I don't have a backup. And please explain to me, what do I have to gain by debating you? You have 3,000 followers. I have 300,000. The only one that's going to gain is you. And I gave you what I promised. So fuck you. Well, what are you scared? Yeah, I'm fucking terrified of you, you dipshit. So if you see him out,
It's typical.
if you see him out there saying I'm afraid to debate him, just remind him that they ain't no money in it for me. I'm not going to debate him unless there's some value in it for me. And the times I have talked to him, it was just basically getting something off my chest. Well, I'm good now, so I don't need to do that again.
Yeah, he's a special kind of something.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Watching I'm sure his lives are just as bad as watching when he was on your podcast, and it was rough going. Talking in circles, didn't have any answers for anything, which is typical Trumplefuck.
Yeah.
Um, you know, they take anything that they can hold on to as evidence, and they don't actually understand what evidence is. You know, you and I would look at some dipshit making a video online and go, "Oh, this is just some dipshit in his living room talking. There's nothing backing it." And then he'd look at it and go, see, I was right, I was right.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
people like you and a bunch of the other ones, they come back with sources, and you know, if you look it up anywhere, you can find the information to back it up.
Right.
And that's the big thing, that they don't understand the difference. I think they've been lied to for so long by places like Fox News that they don't understand what credible journalism or even credible reporting for that matter is.
I think HVAC Jeff is just looking for attention, and he'll say anything to get attention. And that's why I told him, I said, um, if anybody gained anything out of the debate and me being on your live, it's you, because you got exposed to more people than if it was just yourself. I said, I'm not going to give you any more publicity. I'm not going to give you any more PR. I'm not going to give you an opportunity for a larger platform. Build your own fucking platform and then have me on. But you offer me nothing, and you don't offer the listeners anything because you have no facts.
Exactly. I think, like you said, he gained the most out of it. But if there's a reason most of the Trumple fucks only have 3, 4, 5,000 followers, there's not many Trumple fuck accounts that I've seen that are huge, huge followings.
No, no.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. They're either bots or, I mean, I blocked probably 20 Trumplefucks from my post today, and most of them had one or two or zero followers. So it tells you they're either brand new or they're phony or they're just stupid. And I think all of these could have been any number of those things or a combination thereof. Anyway, HVAC was begging me to come on, literally begging me to come on. I can show you the emails. I've got 8 emails prodding me, trying to tell me I'm scared and all this stuff. I just laugh at this motherfucker. I don't have any need for him. So if you hear him saying some shit, um, just laugh at him. It's a joke. He's an idiot. He's trying so hard to get attention, and nobody fucking cares. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today, Eric. It was a busy day for Donald Trump. It was a D day, if you will. We know that Donald Trump was supposed to have a deadline today to come up with $464 million bond in the Latitia James fraud lawsuit against him. We know he appealed to the courts, but we hadn't heard anything up until 11:06 yesterday a.m. And the Supreme Court or the appellate court came back and said, okay, we're going to cut your bond from 464 million to 175 million, and you have 10 days to provide the money. A lot of people were disappointed by that, pretty upset by that, because they think once again Donald Trump weaseled out of something.
Yeah, they do. And I think some of that is the media misrepresenting it. Um, because they came back with, oh, judges sided with him. He's down to 175 million. But what they don't put in the headline and they don't report early in the article is that the 464 million doesn't go away.
Right.
He still owes the whole 464 plus daily interest of like 20 some 30 some thousand a day that this is accruing. Um, and it'll keep accruing until he either pays it, until he pays it and he's out of appeals. The interest doesn't stop. So, but they don't report that early in the article. And a lot of people don't read full articles anymore, even if they're short.
No, they
They
don't.
read the first couple sentences, they read the headline, and they move on. And I think a lot of people thought that, he got it reduced down to 175, and Donald Trump's crowing that he got it down to 175. And of course, his Trumple fucks are saying, see, he won an appeal. He won the appeal. He won the appeal. And none of that's true, but it's because the media doesn't represent things the correct way anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It doesn't change the award. The award is still the same. And I'll tell you something else. They gave him 10 days to get this 175 million. I found it strange. I haven't heard Donald Trump crowing too much about that winning that appeal allegedly. He's not yelling and screaming about it. It's my contention that whether it's $464 million or $175 million, he still doesn't fucking have it. It's akin to somebody coming to you, Eric, and say, you owe us $1 million. You say, I can't afford that. Say, okay, well, then just give us $400,000. How does that change it for you? It doesn't change anything. You still have to pay out more money than you actually have. And he had to get a bond for the 91 million. So the idea that he has to get a bond for the 175 million, I don't know that that helps him that much. It shuts him up for a minute, but I don't know that it helps him.
Right. It does shut him up for a minute, but here's the thing. If he doesn't come up with it in the 10 days, which I think we were saying is like next Thursday or something
Right.
like that, he's still on the clock. And Letitia James can still keep doing what she's doing, filing judgments with different counties and in different states and counties in those states to start actively putting liens and seizing his shit. Um, she can keep doing that even though this thing is he's got 10 more days, because all it means is when that day is up, she can go and start collecting the following day, and she can and will. But one of the things she's going to go after is his bank accounts almost immediately.
Right. Right. Well, and the thing about it is that people have to understand the dropping it to 175, that's strictly for the bond. As you pointed out, he still owes the $464 million. And if he doesn't come up with the bond in 10 days, she isn't just going after the 175. She's still going after the whole 464. It's just
Exactly.
that's just to hold it on a stay until the appeal is done. But if he doesn't put the money down, she's grabbing everything more than 175 million.
And I've gone through it myself. I've had issues with uh, judgments and things from past creditors. I know a lot of people that have. And when they go after your bank account, they lock that bank account basically, and they give a letter to the bank and it says, "Hey, we he owes this much money." They seize every penny that is in that account. If it's more, if what's in the account is less than what the judgment is, they will take every penny out of his bank account or bank accounts plural
Right.
and leave him penniless, and
Right.
he can't stop it.
No, no,
His
you can't.
bond's the only thing that will stop her from doing that if she decides to go after his bank accounts first. And then once the bank accounts are gone, then she's going to start taking property. And she's already set to take the two properties just slightly north of New York City. The what is it, seven something resort,
Seven Springs.
Seven Springs. Um, and then there's also the golf course up there, whatever that one is. And but on top of that, because it was filed initially in New York City, everything in New York City's already up for grabs. Is already She didn't have to file anything special. She
Right.
can take Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, a bunch of his apartment buildings, whatever else he's got in New York City. Those are all on the table.
Well, and what people have to understand too is they think him lowering the bond is a win for Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump cared at all about lowering the bond. What his in his own heart of hearts, the win is put it on a stay until after the appeal. The only value he has is delaying it 3 months, 6 months, a year. That's the only value he has. Having to come up with another $175 million, even if he can do it, that straps his company pretty substantially. That puts him at like $270 million that's tied up until he goes through the appeal. And when the appeal is done and he loses, that shit's gone. I mean, while it's not in the hands of Eugene Carroll or the state of New York yet, it's definitely out of the hands of Donald Trump, and he can't do shit with it.
Exactly. Whatever he puts up as collateral, whether it be property or if he gets whatever he gives the bond company or whatever, that's something he can't take to anybody else and get a loan. He can't
No,
use it. He can't sell it and get quick cash. Um, you're right. It takes it out of his hands completely, and he loses control of it, and that scares him. He doesn't. The last thing he wants is to be out of control of anything.
right. Well, yeah, I mean, he is completely out of control because even if he wanted to figure out a way to get a bond, he still has to go through the moderator, the receivership. He doesn't get to make the final decisions. Any moves made with his company have to go through this woman, this former judge that is overseeing all of Donald Trump's business.
Oh, definitely. And The other thing is, if he doesn't come up with it, as we were talking about, she can start seizing his properties. Now, the way I understand it, it would delay things a little bit, but once she seizes like the Seven Springs, she'll have an amount of time to post it up for auction. It goes up on the auction block, and whatever it brings that day is it. It's not a
Yeah.
fire sale. It's not shopping it around on the open market. So, depending on who even shows up with pockets that day, it could go for pennies on the dollar or fractions of pennies on the dollar.
Well, even over and above seizing properties, because that may take a little time to seize properties. It may take a little time to start the process. But one of the things, like you said, they can lock down bank accounts, just ice them out. They can't use, and then all of a sudden you can't make payroll, you can't pay your bills, you can't do anything. Even before the buildings are seized, he's going to have all kinds of motherfucking problems.
Yeah, if he has barely over 500 million, like he claimed in his one Truth Social post, which I believe was a lie, I
Oh,
don't think he
absolutely.
actually had it. But if he had that much and she goes after his bank account, it's, yeah, like you said, he won't be able to attack payroll. He won't be able to pay, the power company when they come knocking, whatever the case might be. He's going to be in such a world of a hurt. And the best part is, he can't go back to the same bank and try to open a new account because they have that letter sitting there saying this judgment. He won't be able to move money. And if he tries to open an account into a new bank, she's going to find it, give them the letter. They'll freeze that new account too within a matter of days. He's going to be boxed into one hell of a corner.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. That's what people have to understand. A lot of people think he wriggled out of something yesterday when he got this thing lowered. He didn't. All he's ever done is delayed the inevitable. And he has lost these cases. There's no way he's going to win the appeals. And whether he gets his stuff grabbed today or a year from today, it doesn't matter because all of it's going to be tied up in such a way that he can't do anything with it. I mean, even when it's sitting in escrow, waiting for the appeal, for all intents and purposes, it straps him because that money is no longer in his control, in his power, and he's sitting on $250 million just sitting in an account, waiting for him to win the appeal. But he's not going to win the appeal. So as soon as he loses it, that stuff gets sucked out. My question is, everybody thinks it's an easy thing. A lot of media people said, "Oh, he'll probably be able to get the 175 million." Where do you get that from? He had to get a bond for 91 million. You think all of a sudden he's got 175 cash someplace? And if he has to get a bond, what's he got to put up? They don't want to listen to the shit he has to offer. Everything he's got is leveraged. He really doesn't have enough to back a bond, even if you drop it down to 175.
The only thing I could see him potentially being able to do, if he could get 175, maybe he's got stocks and things that they might be willing to accept, um, or whatever to get this bond. The other thing I was thinking of is, he's got this merger coming up,
Right.
and it's supposedly going to get him $3 billion, which you've discussed, and I believe what you've said is it's not going to be worth that. It's going to drop down. It'll be a penny stock within a month or two.
Yeah. It's not,
But
it hasn't made any money since it's been in existence. It's been under investigations by the SEC. They don't have that many followers. There just isn't that value in it. Everybody says, well, it's worth 5 billion. I go, where did you hear that? You know where they heard it from? Fucking Donald Trump. Well, if you're believing Donald Trump right now, you're dumber than I think.
well, what I think they could do is he's got however many million shares, 58% controlling equity. The only way I could see anybody even taking that is if he put up like everything
Yeah.
against. So they stand to make potentially, like they would risk it going, okay, Donnie, we'll give you 175. But if your stock is worth what we say it is, we get 3.4 billion or 3.2 billion. Like,
Yeah.
I could see them taking a 30 to 35 times return on their investment. maybe. But
Yeah.
even then, I don't think he can legally put that up as collateral on a bond yet.
He can't. He can't. If the money is part of the deal, once they've established that, if that's the case, there's a lot of problems with it. First of all, he can't take the money out for 6 months. When it comes to after the 6 months, he can only take small percentages out, according to the law. In the first 6 months, he cannot use it for any kind of collateral at all. Nothing at
So
all.
that's out then too.
He can't use it for collateral. And here's the other thing. Say we get to the point where there's 2 billion sitting there and he's going to pull it out, which I could see him doing. But what does that do to the stock? It crashes the stock. The company is done. And once again, Donald Trump has fucking grifted somebody and conned somebody. And a lot of people around him are going to lose money. He wants to make it seem like it's just a matter of time. I might have $2 billion and I'll be saved. Well, that's not the case. That's not the case. And if it's coming out of Donald Trump's mouth, you shouldn't fucking believe it.
Well, he says he's got these 3.2, 3.4 billion, whatever it is, in these stocks. Well, and like you said, a lot of people are like, oh, he can just sell it and come up with 2, 3 billion. Here's the thing: even if he can sell it in 6 months, or they change the rules or whatever, because I think that each company can change their own rules for when he's allowed to sell these stocks.
Right.
But for the sake of argument, he goes to sell it. Well, if they're worth, you know, $10 a piece or whatever, right now, that's what people are buying them at. The minute all of his shares hit the market and they're all out there and that news hits, no one's just because they're up for sale does not mean he gets $10. He gets the money when somebody buys the share,
Right.
the way I understand it. And if nobody's, if it drops to $5 a share, he's automatically lost half his money. If it nosedives even worse, just because it's valued where it is in the moment does not mean it's automatically worth that.
The valuation on True Social was made right at its inception. Donald Trump and some other people say, well, it'll be worth 5 billion. But the fact of the matter is the app is failing like everything Donald Trump does. It's really not worth 5 billion. The idea that Donald Trump says it's worth 5 billion is akin to HVAC Jeff suggesting he's the greatest debater on all of TikTok. You know, you can say that all you want, but it's just not fucking true.
Oh, exactly. I mean, his Truth Social, it's barely a source for his Trumplafucks. I mean, the only reason it still has any credibility is because there are people on TikTok and the mainstream media that have followed him on there, and they pick up what he says there, and it gets spread out everywhere else. That's the only reason it's even still around, is because of the stupid shit he says and everybody else picking it up and spreading it. If they weren't doing that, it would have been dead already.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty ridiculous. And the amount of users they have. Let me make a comparison. I'm looking at users estimated monthly as of July 2023 is 607,000 users. Okay. Compare that to TikTok, who has 170 million users. Do you think there's any comparison in terms of value? Um,
No, not at all.
it says True Social has 5 million members and is performing badly. So how in the world does that become valued at $5 billion? It doesn't. It's just people talking. I mean, that's what people have to understand. We've been listening to Donald Trump making outrageous claims for 7 years. And I don't know why people still believe this shit every time he's proven wrong.
It's because it's the bluster and the way he says it. And um I don't remember where I was watching where I picked this up, but it was from something. Basically, it said when you lie, make it believable. And it's all about, like, you have to believe the shit you're saying when you're lying, and people will believe you for saying it. I don't remember what movie or show I was watching where one of the characters said that, but it's true. he believes the shit he's saying with and it's the conviction in which he says it. That's why some people believe it. The other part is, as we've talked about numerous times, the media picks up, and instead of just ignoring the stupid shit and the obvious lies, they repeat it. They give
Right.
him credibility for the stupid shit he's saying by telling people, "Hey, he said this today."
Well, that's why I continue to push hard on the fact that you and I, Eric, are the sexiest men in all of podcasting. I firmly believe that, and we should be acknowledged as such.
Sure, why not? Let's go. Let's go with that.
Just say it loud and proud and keep saying it. People will fucking believe it. It is silly. You know, since you brought up the media, I want to go on to the other thing with Donald Trump too, but that happened yesterday. But we were talking about the media, and I've made a lot of complaints about the media. I have as much trouble with the left side as I do the right side. I think they're largely responsible for Donald Trump getting elected president in 2016 because they lent him credibility by keeping him on the screen all the time. But there was kind of an upheaval at NBC because they were doing Meet the Press, and Kristen Welker was the host, and they brought on Ronna McDaniel, the former
Oh
chairman
God.
of the RNC. Okay. No big deal. You're going to come take her to task and all that stuff. But just before she went on the show, it was revealed that Ronna McDaniel was hired by NBC and paid by NBC to be an analyst. Well, that was pretty fucked up to put her on that program, put Kristen Welker in that position. And it was pretty despicable by NBC. And then, you know, Chuck Todd and this Morning Joe, everybody's just ripping their companies they work for doing something that outrageous. But does that surprise you, given, you know, the credibility we see from cable media anyway?
It does surprise me just a little bit because you take somebody that egregious as McDaniel and you give her a platform now instead of taking her to task. Kind of like it does surprise me some, but it also doesn't surprise me at all because she's sitting there. That's what all these politicians do. They get beat or whatever, and they go ahead and um, they get beat or they get ousted from their position or resign or whatever, and they find a way to make it into media. And even the left side media is turning it around and picking these people up because they want to appear more center and balanced. Fuck them. Take them to task. Get them the fuck out of there. We don't need to hear. You don't have to give both sides of an opinion to tell the facts.
Well, and you know, the thing is if you want a conservative on your show or a Republican, you can get a Liz Cheney, an Adam Kinzinger, a Ken Buck, any one of those people that, while we don't agree with them and maybe even some of their ideas are crazy, at least they acknowledge the truth about the election, about the January 6 people. That was the problem with Ronna McDaniel. While she was head of the RNC, she was saying that the election was stolen and that the January 6 people were political prisoners. That's pretty opposite of the truth. And now she's kind of backing off that now that she works for NBC. And that just tells us that Ronna McDaniel will say whatever the fuck she has to say, depending on who's paying her. And she even said, you know,
Exactly.
well, I was working for the RNC and I had to be online with a bunch of things. How about just tell the truth? How about just take a look at the facts and say that, whether it is in line with your current employer or not? But she doesn't have any credibility or legitimacy, and the fact that NBC hired her, they should be ashamed of themselves.
Oh, they should. If she would have come out after January 6th and shut it down, and you had the arm of like the major backing of the Republican Party saying this is fucked. He doesn't stand for us. He's not part of us. This type of stuff isn't part of us. We wouldn't be in this situation now.
Right.
The fact is that she felt she had to back him because he was part of their party is fucked up. And the fact that she continued to defend him up until the time when she didn't work there after he stabbed her, now she's not saying it because somebody else is paying her paycheck, and he stabbed her in the back.
Right.
Well, that's fucked.
Yeah, it is. And the thing about it is that on January 7th, there were a lot of Republicans that either quit or spoke out against what happened on January 6th. It's not like no Republicans did. Some of them did. She did not. She went the opposite way, started spewing the lies. And to give her a reward for being a liar and an insurrectionist and somebody trying to overturn an election and overthrow our government, I just don't see how that benefits NBC at all, especially now that it's been exposed and pretty much slap them in the face.
Yeah, I mean, all they do basically with it is, like I said, they're trying to appear fair and balanced. They want to come across as being in the middle because they're hoping maybe they can get some of the Fox viewers on their side.
Well, that's exactly
And
right.
it's all about money, it's all about ratings, and it has no bearing on the truth anymore. You know, they don't care if by bringing her on, people are going to look at them and go, yeah, it's kind of fucky. And, she was spreading all these lies, but now we can trust her. They don't care about that. They only care about how many eyes they can bring to their screens and web pages.
Well, I think you nailed it. You remember when Fox News uh, was sued by Dominion, and they were on the down and outs. They had to pay $800 million, and it was crazy, and it was devastating for them. And you saw places like CNN trying to sneak in there and get some of the Fox listeners. They don't care if the Fox listeners are crazy. You have to wonder if NBC isn't looking ahead because we've got the Smartmatic lawsuit coming. And once again, Fox News is going to take a hit. You wonder if they aren't
Yep.
preparing to try to steal Fox News listeners or viewers. That seems to be the reason they would do it, because it's a stupid thing to do, but they need to appeal to dumb fucks, and they don't care if they've got dumb fucks as long as it uh, amounts to viewers and money.
True. But if by doing something like that, if that does get some of the Fox viewers to watch and they start tuning into the majority of their programming is aimed at us, maybe some of these dumb fucks learn something.
Yeah, yeah, you would hope so. I mean, that was one of the things about the State of the Union. A lot of people watched that, and you can't really spin that. Joe wasn't uh, diminished. He was strong and he was loud and he spoke facts, and everybody had to see it, and even Fox News listeners were watching it. I don't know, the media, as much as they were a problem for us in 2016 and 2020, it doesn't seem like they've learned any lessons. They're still problematic for us with spewing these poll numbers and such that just don't have any bearing in fact. I mean, with just look at the fundraising. Who's winning that? Joe Biden by double what Donald Trump is. That's a sure sign to tell you what kind of support they're going to get in November.
Yeah, I think it's clear Joe Biden's going to win in November. We're going to win the down ballots in a lot of states that I don't think anyone's expecting yet. I think you're going to see one hell of a shift blue. And um, the fundraising, like you said, uh, it's a big indicator. No one wants to donate to Donald Trump
No.
because they know it's not going to go toward his reelection or the election of Republicans. It's going to go into his legal fees and his fines and those payments.
Well, and, the idea that he sent his daughter-in-law over to run the RNC and that he's going to co-opt the RNC and take all their money. I know that's upsetting to a lot of Republicans, and I think some Democrats think that's going to be a saving grace. But the fact of the matter is, RNC doesn't have that much money. I don't know what they have now, but probably 2 months ago, I heard they had $8 million. $8 million isn't going to be enough to fix Donald Trump's problem, but it's going to drain them of every penny, and every other candidate isn't going to get any help from the RNC, which is a perfect setup for us. I hope he drains those motherfuckers dry.
Oh, he's going to drain them dry. He's going to, but the thing is, you know, other donors are even going to be more likely to stay away from donating to even Republican candidates and other PACs, because they're going to constantly be worried, is this money that I'm donating to, Marjorie Taylor Greene or whoever, and whatever PAC was going to support her, is that money going to somehow end up back in Donald Trump's hands? I can see Republican donors sitting a lot of these races out this time and telling them, fend for yourselves. We'll catch you up next time when Donald Trump's hands aren't in the coffers.
Or they might be going direct to the candidate instead of going to the RNC, going to whoever and saying, here's some money under the table. That'd be the only way they can get money. I mean, the whole thing with the RNC not being able to support the down ballot folks, that spells a lot of trouble. I mean, I think it's foregone conclusion that Donald Trump's going to lose the presidency if he's even the candidate. But those down ballot folks, the people in the House, the Senate, the legislatures, the governors and stuff, they need to win those if they want to maintain any power, and it's not looking good.
No, it's not. And I think if we can flip some of these states and flip it back under Democratic control that haven't been there for a bit, and things start actually getting done, it's only going to cement, the younger voter to vote Democrat. And it's going to do nothing but hurt up, the Republican Party long run. I don't think the Republican Party exists in 10 years.
Yeah, I maybe 2 years, maybe after the 2024 election, they may have to disband and reconnoiter and reimagine themselves, because it's going to be clear that the Republican Party is a loser, and there really is no path back under the MAGA reign. A lot of people, when they heard that the appellate court in New York lowered Donald Trump's bond, people were freaking out. I heard some media people saying this is a miscarriage of justice. This is a travesty. And as much as I don't think it's going to be as helpful for Donald Trump as people think, it is a miscarriage of justice. I mean, Donald Trump keeps talking about how there's a two-tier judicial system, and he's absolutely right, but not the way he describes it. Clearly, with Donald Trump specifically, anybody who's rich, famous, or powerful gets treated differently, gets treated better than any one of us. And when the Democrats do get control, that is one of the biggest problems we have to address. We have problems with the judicial system from the Supreme Court all the way down to the state courts. And that's not an easy fix, but we're seeing very clearly how wealthy people and powerful people have already always benefited and got preferential treatment.
Yeah, and with all of this coming to light, they have to do something. And I think they will do something as early as probably no later than after they win the 2024 election, when the new Congress is sworn in, somewhere in the next session, they are going to start doing some major judicial reform. But I think they almost have to give Donald Trump some preferential treatment, only because he is a former president. Yes, he's supposedly rich and powerful, but I think they're giving him the preferential treatment just because they've seen what he can do between January 6th. The other judges getting death threats and white powder sent to their offices and this and that and all the other bullshit that the Trump-fucks are willing to do. I think the courts gave him some preferential treatment so they can say, hey, look, we tried to cut him some slack, leave us out of this. And it sucks. What we need to do, though, is get these Trump-fucks back under their rocks and realize that they don't have the power they think they do.
Right. Well, no, I think you're right. I think the courts and the judges have given preferential treatment to Donald Trump, again, to save from ridicule. It's not going to save him from ridicule or the heat from the Trump-fucks. Just the fact that it's under the microscope, it's high profile, it's in the media, they are reacting differently than, say, it were you and me. And whether that's an excuse or not, it's wrong. I mean, if nothing else, our judicial system should be only about law. Is it illegal or is it legal? What's the accountability if it is illegal? So we don't have that with our courts. And our courts, because of that, are lack credibility. They aren't they aren't working off the rule of law. They're working off peer pressure, basically.
A little bit, but I think like we were talking about earlier, I would be willing to bet the appellate court looked at the 175 million and the fact that he had to struggle to almost the last day to get the $91 million bond
Hmm.
and said he's probably not going to get the 175, so it doesn't matter if we cut him some slack and give him 10 days. It's I think they kind of looked at it that way and said, yeah, maybe it is two tiered, but it's not going to change anything.
Yeah, that may be true too. And I have that same feeling that 175 million, you might as well ask for a billion, because if you don't have the money, it doesn't matter if it's 464 or 175 million. And I think, depending on how the judges were thinking about this, okay, we're going to give them a break, a good break down to 175 million. Now, Donald Trump can't come back and say, I want it less. He's already been given, he's been afforded that drop in value. He's kind of stuck now. He can't go ask to pay less. He will, but they've done what they were supposed to do, and they have no obligation to revise it again.
Yeah, they didn't have an obligation to revise it the first time, but I think you're right. They gave him the break, and now they can say when he comes back a second time, well, I'm struggling, I need more time, I need more time. They're like, Donnie, we gave you more time. We gave
Yeah,
you more time than we should have the first time. Fuck you.
yeah,
And I think that's what's going to happen. I think they had the foresight to know that it really didn't matter. All of 10 days doesn't change anything, really.
right, right, exactly. It's funny how the media people will say, I think he can probably get that. Based on what? Just because it's a lesser amount, we know he couldn't get the 91 million. So why would he get the 175 now? It's just, it doesn't make any sense. Now, Donald Trump, some people maybe saw that as that dropping of the bond amount as a win for Donald Trump. But Donald Trump didn't have a perfect day yesterday. He had a big loss. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about Donald Trump's hearing regarding the Manhattan District criminal trial coming up. We'll be right back right after this. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. I have Eric from Iowa with me. We've got a robust conversation going on about some of the happenings yesterday, and there was a lot of them. We talked about the one thing that maybe Donald Trump finds positive, in that a court dropped the amount of the bond he has to post and gave him 10 days um, free reign to delay paying the bond. We already talked about that. I don't know that it's going to help him anyway. But if that was a good day for Donald Trump, Eric, Donald Trump had a bad day yesterday. He was also in a hearing in New York, and it was regarding the Manhattan District criminal case, the Stormy Daniels, the election interference case. Now, that case was supposed to start yesterday. And then all of a sudden, this huge dump of documents came out of the DOJ, which seemed weird. Why would the DOJ wait to the last minute to do that, knowing that people would have to take the time to go through this shit? And they met in a hearing today, kind of trying to figure that out and what the deal with that was. And it turns out it was something that Donald Trump's team did, planning to try to cause a delay. They didn't turn something over in time, and that's why it came out late. But going into this hearing, Donald Trump really wanted to delay this thing up to 90 days. Well, of course he did. Now, when Judge Juan Marchand first heard about this document dump and he had to delay it something, he had to do something. He put it out till April 15th. They go to the hearing yesterday. Donald Trump's team is adamant that we need 90 days to go all through these documents and all this stuff. But Juan Marchand is not like any of the judges we've seen to date. He does not fuck around. He's not going to play, and he's not going to tolerate these constant delays. And Judge Juan Marchand said, nope, we're starting the trial April 15th. So we're less than 3 weeks away from Donald Trump's first criminal trial, which is awesome. And I understand that Donald Trump and his lawyers weren't behaving very well when that was going on. They were upset.
Oh, I heard a little bit about them being upset. It's great that it's going to start on April 15th, which is, not that far away, about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And, but the big thing I saw something, apparently during this hearing, he kind of chastised them a little bit. Juan Marchand did, because they kept trying to say, well, the prosecution didn't do this or that, but it was equally on them to try to get these documents. And they didn't do that, whatever they were supposed to do. And he said, it's not just the prosecution's job. You had equal say in doing this. So, you didn't do your job. And now expect me to give you a delay because you didn't do your job and you tried to force this delay? I don't think so.
Well, and I've talked to people about this before, and everybody's worried about is the Georgia one, or is the Florida one, or is the DC one going to happen before the election? First of all, I don't believe Donald Trump has a chance to win the election, so I don't think it's neither here nor there. But as long as one case goes before the election, that being the Manhattan district, and it will because it's starting April 15th. It's maybe a 2.5 month thing. So we're talking about April 15th, May 15th, June 15th, maybe the end of June, early August is when it's over. That's before the election. In my opinion, he's got 34 felony charges in this case. He is going to get convicted of multiple felony charges. For me, that's the death knell. All the other cases, wherever they come before or after the election, that's just dirt on an existing grave. You can't kill him any more than convicting him 10 times for a felony.
Well, he's got 34 felony charges just in this case, each one
Right.
carrying, I think, 1 to 2 years, maybe more. He'll probably get 30 convictions out of this. I
Probably.
don't, I mean, the way I understand most of these are what they call documents charges, where they don't bring them if they don't have the documents to back them. And they dumb it down to where a 5-year-old can understand, here's a document that proves he did X. That's a violation of the law, removes all doubt. He's probably going to get 30 charges. He's going to probably, unless they stack all the time to where, you know, it all counts concurrently and he only actually does a year or two, he's probably going to spend the rest of his life in jail from this one case.
Well, yeah.
And on top of that, add in the fact that, like, he'll be down to like 30% of the nation supporting him because like 70% said they wouldn't vote for him if he gets a felony conviction,
Right.
even one.
Right.
He's done after this case.
Well, and the thing is, people will say to me, what if he doesn't go to jail? What if he only goes to jail for 2 years? Well, what happens in the 2 years or even a year that he's on ice in prison? All those other cases are progressing along. And even if he gets close to getting out, another case will go, another case will go, and another case will go. And as you said, once he's in prison, he'll never get out because he's going to get nailed on the other ones too. And he's not going to be able to fight it like he is now. Even if Donald Trump doesn't go to jail for the Manhattan District thing, I don't think it matters because, like you said, it's a death knell. He's
Mm-hmm.
definitely taken out of the mix for the election. There's no way he can even come close to winning. I think that's already the case, but that pretty much sets it in stone that he's done. The moment he gets a conviction of a criminal charge, he's done. All the preceding criminal charges just add on to whatever time he's got coming and takes him out of the mix, takes him out of the narrative, and he's fucking done. That's why I only really care about this particular trial right now, and we'll worry about the other ones whenever they come.
Exactly. And let's just get through one, he's got so much against him, and there still could be charges out of New Jersey. There could be charges out of all the other states with the fake electors. I mean, we don't know how many cases he's going to end up with or how many charges. If we keep worrying about the what if in each individual case, all you're going to do is worry. This is the most promising case right now. And like I said, it's a documents case. They don't bring the charges unless they know they have the documents to back it. I think I made the comparison the last time I was on this podcast. It'd be like me going down to my local grocery store, writing a check for my groceries, and it bounces sky high.
Right.
They subpoena my bank records showing I didn't have the money. They bring in the fake check and they bring in the grocery receipt,
Right.
or they bring in the check that bounced, and they charge me with with passing a bad check. I can't get out of that because bank shows I don't have the money, check didn't clear, and I got the groceries.
Well, it's like
Open and
it's like the documents case. He wants to say he had every right to have them. Well, the law says he doesn't have every right to have them. That he can deny that he didn't have them, but the fact of the matter is, FBI went to his fucking house, dragged him out of the house. There's no question he had them. You can't
exactly.
even argue that point. Um,
Exactly. He's arguing some piddly stuff that it was his right to, or no, that was what the judge said. It was that the president might get to decide whether it's personal or classified or whatever, which is bullshit too. Um, but he's arguing piddly little minute things when the mountain of evidence against him is so strong that there's no way he's going to be able to talk his way out of this. He just talks in circles and people believe the bluster.
they do, and some people are under the impression that he's got 91 felony charges, 4 indictments in 4 jurisdictions. People are under the misconception that he has to be found guilty in all those jurisdictions. All those cases have to go forward and he has to be convicted of all of it. Otherwise, he gets away. Fact of the matter is if he gets convicted in the Manhattan district and say DC and Georgia and Florida just take a shit for whatever reason, he's still done forever. He's gone.
He could be done forever just out of New York,
Yeah.
forgetting all of the rest. Would it be nice to see the big sentences and have all of the laundry aired and really show the history books how bad he really was? It would be amazing. But logically, even if he only gets convicted of one charge out of New York out of these 34 and gets 2 years in prison, that's enough to where
Yep.
he can't win this election. He probably gets trapped by the Republican Party. He's going to lose all of his shit, lose all of his money on top of it because he won't be out and about and able to wheel and deal and fix any of his uh, civil judgments and deal with any of that. Like one charge and one conviction is enough to end him. And let's not get hung up on the idea that he's got to get past everything. Now, if he was an 18-year-old kid and he was staring at all these charges, I could see being more worried about having all the charges stick to keep him locked up for life. But
Right.
he's not. He's 77, 78 years old, almost 78, and he's in very shitty health. He might not live through, even if he didn't have all this looming over his head, his health alone, he might not live 4 more years.
If Donald Trump actually gets put in jail, I say he doesn't survive. He mentally, certainly he won't survive. He'll be broken. And physically he probably won't survive. I mean, he's got this Adderall addiction and other things, and he won't have that when, he's been on Adderall for decades. And when he goes to jail, probably won't have the Adderall. He's going to be fucked if he's in there for 2 years. And like you said, he's going to be 78. Say he goes into jail for 2 years, comes out at 80, 81, 82, depending on when the appeals go through. He ain't coming back from that if he even survives. Donald
Yeah,
Trump gets a conviction, he's fucking done. And he doesn't
right.
need all 91. He needs like 2.
He needs realistically even one, I think, is enough. If it involves even the conviction alone is probably enough to get him knocked out of any sort of political running. But if he gets one with jail time, that will end him. By the time he gets out of prison, the Republican Party will either be gone or have to be rebuilding, and they're not going to latch back onto him. They are going to push him to the curb and set him out like he is with the trash.
Well, when you've already lost with Donald Trump in 2018, 2020, 2022, and presumably here in 2024, there's got to come a point where you go, This fucker's a loser. We're walking away from him, whether he's healthy or whether he's in jail or not. He's of no use to them anymore because he hasn't accomplished anything for them in uh, in almost 10 years.
I think regardless of whether he wins or not in November, and regardless of whether or not he's in, well, I shouldn't say that, regardless of whether or not he's in jail when he loses this upcoming election, if he screws over the Republican Party like we think he's going to, I think it's going to be the death knell for his political ambitions. They're going to have to walk away from him. And the Republican Party themselves, no one's going to seek out his endorsement. And if he starts endorsing candidates, they're probably going to, push somebody else just in general.
Yeah.
Just by how, he's fucking over their fundraising. He's stealing from them to fund himself. His actions toward the Republican Party, they have to walk away from him after this election, one way or the other, unless he miraculously delivers them the presidency, the Senate, the House with a convincing margin and a whole bunch of down ballot races, which I don't think is going to happen.
No, it can't happen. People come to me all the time and they'll say, "How can you possibly say that Donald Trump has no chance of winning?" And I always say, "How can you possibly say he has any chance?" I mean, this guy's embraced overturning Roe v. Wade. 75% of the people disagree with him. He's going to be convicted of crimes. He's been exposed as a rapist. He's not real popular with women and a lot of men at this point. He's not a great candidate because he's pissed a lot of people. And now when they start talking about Medicare and Social Security, fucking forget about it. You got the whole country that hates you.
Exactly. And I think you talk about Social Security, Medicaid. Somebody brought it up on TikTok. They were talking about Social Security has been designed since the beginning to always be about 20 years out from failing. Because we've been hearing it I've been hearing it for over 20 years that, Social Security is about 20 years away. It's going to be gone, you know, and in 20 years, we'll hear it again. It's designed to, you know, be out of money. So in a way, because they want to bank it on the backs of the upcoming class to pay the previous working class, and they keep that cycle going. But the people that want it to go away, it's the big push for it is the investments in the hedge funds and the 401k managers,
Right.
that they don't want you to have a working Social Security account. They want you to be worried and put the money with them. So you do private savings. So when you retire, they're managing your money.
Right. Right. And and the thing about it is that when I was 18 years old, 1978, I remember somebody, an older person, talking to me about Social Security, and they said, "Well, of course, it's not going to be around when you're old enough to get Social Security. You're going to be shit out of luck." Like you say, they've been talking about this for decades, and somehow it still survives. I'll be honest with you, if Social Security was allowed to fail and it was taken away, that would be the biggest upheaval in this country. I mean, people survive on what they make from Social Security, uh, and you're going to have a lot of people destitute and homeless if that goes away, and that will cause an outrage in this country that Democrats and Republicans don't want to fuck with.
Oh, exactly. I mean, some Republicans want to fuck with it because they don't understand, um, or they're that stupid, one of the two. But even I looked at my folks who are mostly staunch Republicans, and they've gotten worse over the years. But even my dad, we were talking about something, and he said, "Well, they're talking about cutting your Social Security payments." My dad looks at me and goes, "Well, then what are you supposed to live on?"
Yeah,
And I go, "Dad, they don't care. They don't want you to have your Social Security. They don't want you to have cheaper drugs for Medicare. You were supposed to figure it out when you were 18 years old, and I put all this money back for now. And they want to tell you it's not the government's job to take care of you." And he looked shocked and horrified. I don't know if it's going to change his vote,
it should.
but it should. I don't know if it will, but the simple fact that you're talking about cutting it from these seniors, when they hear it, if they get the message, they are going to be horrified and they are going to vote against whoever's wanting to cut it from them.
Well, as I understand it, they're not dumb enough to try to cut it to existing seniors. They're going to cut it for future people, give them time to prepare for having social. I still will fight for it because all young people like yourself and other people, you've paid into it. It's not an entitlement. It is, in fact, um, almost an insurance policy for you that you have every right to collect on.
Exactly. But the thing is, it doesn't, in a way, it doesn't matter what the full message is. It's um it's kind of like taxes. The simple fact that you're mentioning cutting it at all, there's a lot of seniors that will look at it and say, well, if they're taking it from the younger people, they might not even hear that it's only for the young people. Oh, they're talking about cutting it. And you will lose their vote and you cannot convince them to come back to you.
No,
Just on
no,
the fact you're talking about it. Just like taxes, people get hung up on this idea. Joe Biden said he wanted to raise taxes on anybody making over $400,000 a year. A lot of people quit listening after he said, I want to raise taxes.
right, right,
And that's all they heard. And I know I've never made $400,000 a year in my life, but I was smart enough to go, okay, that's not going to be me. That's not going to affect me.
right.
But a lot of people, all they heard was raise taxes, and they were immediately against anything else that was said after raise taxes. It didn't matter what the rest of that sentence said.
Right. Well, it's what people have to understand too is when he's talking about raising taxes, he's talking about raising taxes on people that are wealthy or upper range and up to wealthy who pay less taxes than you and I do. If you're a billionaire paying 10 or 15% and we're paying 25, 30%, you can see the discrepancy there and you can see how much money is being left on the table by cutting these rich people a break. At the very least, they should pay as much as we pay. That's the fair way to do it. And granted, they will pay more taxes, but they make more money. You pay more taxes when you make more money, so do I. So why is it different for them?
Exactly. And I agree wholeheartedly with raising the taxes on the rich people and the corporations. Um, because you got to reel in the corporate greed and the rich greed because it's killing the middle class and uh this country in general because there's not going to be the money to go around. You have to charge these upper people the taxes to fund the programs to build the lower income programs that keep this country flowing, that
Right.
keep things working.
Well, I think going into this election and presuming that the Democrats have a certain amount of control after the election is done, it almost seems to me like we are coming into a reckoning period for wealthy people, corporations that have criminal behavior, corrupt behavior, that are morally bankrupt. We see it with Donald Trump, 91 felony charges. He's been found liable as a rapist. He's been proven to be a con man and a thief and trying to overthrow our government. We've got oligarchs like Zuckerberg and people like that being exposed for the fucked up shit they're doing. And then yesterday, I know you didn't look too much at it, and I didn't look at it as much as I should, but I found it intriguing. Sean P. Diddy Combs. There's been a lot of talk about his participation in sex trafficking and that sort of thing, and who knows what else. But federal agents raided his house in Miami and raided his house in California. And uh, Sean Combs somehow just accidentally got on his private plane and went to Cape Verde, where there is no extradition. So he knew what was fucking coming. But what I'm saying is, these people who have been protected and living lavishly for all these years, all of a sudden, The shit's coming down on them. And it's not just a few people. It seems like all of them.
Oh, there is. I mean, he's getting accountability. I don't know what this was all about, what they were rating for. I haven't, like you said, I hadn't heard much about it, but it's interesting that they rated both his properties, I'm guessing simultaneously or within a short time of each other. And obviously, he knows something's coming if he's out of the country where he can't be extradited.
Right.
But then you add in, look at Kellogg's. Kellogg's, they're pushing, and there's a lot of push to boycott Kellogg's after the CEO said, eat cereal for supper,
Yeah.
as basically a, you know, well, just buy more of my stuff and keep food for supper if you can't afford to eat. And people are taking him to task. And then I kind of mentioned it before we went on. There's been the docu-series that just came out, Quiet on Set,
Right.
where they're exposing everything that happened at Nickelodeon in the early 2000s, and people are horrified. And more is coming out. The reckoning and the accounting for these people who have been able to get away with this shit for decades is coming.
What do you think the cause of that is? I think part of the cause of it is Donald Trump. For years, all these things were going on. This isn't new. All this stuff coming out now isn't just start in the last couple of years, but it was always under the radar. It was always well hidden. A uh, reasonable. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh man, they could
Like
always
plausible deniability.
Plaza, yeah, exactly. And they always had that, and they had the money to go to court and bury things and run the clock out on people and run people out of money. But now all of a sudden that's not working. And I think part of it has to do with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a criminal. He's morally bankrupt. He's a corrupt human being, but he's also very stupid and very loud. So he brought these things out to the surface like a fucking fever blister for everyone to see. All that's been hidden for all these years is now open, and now people are feeling comfortable. Just like the racists were comfortable to come out and be racist because Donald Trump was racist. Same people who are exposing big name people are now not afraid of it, and they're exposing people. And every day somebody else is exposed, and it's looking horrific out there. But I think this may be the start of a reckoning, whether it be the wealthy people, stealing money, or other people being involved in sex trafficking. It's just started, and it's fucking messy right now.
Oh, you're right. It is messy. It's gonna keep going. It's gonna keep building. One thing I do know, I think you're right. Donald Trump brought some of it to the surface. Between Donald Trump and a lot of democratically controlled areas that had increased the time limit for some of these things to be brought out and brought to light and
Right.
charges to be filed. And I think in some of the protections between that, Donald Trump, and places like TikTok, I think that is what's really causing the reckoning that we're seeing. Because, if it wouldn't have been for TikTok, I mentioned the Quiet on Set docu-series. I didn't know it was even coming out until I started seeing clips from the series
Right.
on TikTok.
Right.
I didn't know about the Kellogg's ban or the Kellogg's comments and the boycott until I saw it on TikTok. These things are being brought to light in part because people are now brave enough because they saw Eugene Carroll get paid because of Donald Trump and what happened there. And they've changed the laws. But also places like TikTok are getting this stuff out there to more and more people who wouldn't have been aware of it in the first place.
Yeah. What's funny is, and you're seeing people um, talking about this now for a couple decades now. People like Corey Feldman were talking about this sex abuse and the sex trafficking. And we were led to believe that that fucking guy's just crazy. He's goofy. And he is crazy and he is goofy. But it turns out all the things he was talking about coming to light now, it was true. People owe him an apology. And there's a couple of others out there. There's a kid from Nickelodeon too, I think. He was on Moesha or something. I can't remember. That motherfucker's crazy too. But I suppose if you've been sex trafficked and abused for years and years when you're a child, that's going to affect your brain. But these guys were spewing all this crazy shit. And now we're coming to realize it wasn't crazy. It was fucking true.
No, you're right. It was all, a lot of it was true. And but they didn't have the backing of anybody really in their corner.
Right.
And they didn't have the evidence and the platform to get the message out there with enough people that were outraged, that were backing them, and they were able to be pushed under the rug. Look at what happened to, Britney Spears and Amanda Bynes from Nickelodeon. There's now some of what's coming out with Amanda Bynes. They're saying that uh, she had a fake Twitter account at one point when she was 13 because her parents were controlling her main account.
Right.
And she basically admitted that one of her producers at 13 got her pregnant
Right.
and she had an abortion. That's all coming back around, and now people are finally starting to believe her 25 years later. And it's crazy that we didn't have, like you said, we didn't believe them, and the people and the powers that be were able to just push this to the side. And because the one voice was saying one thing, and they got so many people on the other side to back the person doing the bad thing, because they didn't know what was really going on, and they just assumed, well, I've worked with this guy before, he's a good guy, I know him.
Yeah.
And now it's all coming to light. And I think the combination, like I said, of Donald Trump, the laws changing, and social media is leading to this reckoning.
It is. It is. And the thing about it is with the Amanda Bynes and Jeanette McCurdy's and all these people that are now talking about abuses, the one thing they had going against them is the people that they were pushing back in had a lot of power. They determined whether these people would work again, and a lot of these parents and such felt pressure that their kids would never work if they didn't accommodate or keep quiet about stuff. We should have gotten the signal first when all was exposed about Harvey Weinstein. Apparently, what Harvey
Mm-hmm.
Weinstein does and Dan Schneider and all this stuff, this isn't a rarity in that business. And it's, honestly, it's probably not a rarity in politics either, because it's a similar situation. You got a bunch of people thinking they have a lot of power and they're kind of elites and they think they can get away with anything. And that's why politicians have done all the things they've done over the years. And now, like we said, it's a reckoning because now we know because of the social media like TikTok. And I honestly think TikTok is one of the saving graces for getting information out. As much as there is wrong information that comes out, there's enough that's decent information that people didn't normally get. And I think this is giving politicians and power people in entertainment fucking fits because they can no longer hide it.
Oh, it definitely is. That's one of the reasons they want to ban it. It's not about all of the bullshit that they're trying to say, oh, this Chinese company, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy any of that. It's all about the fact that there's so much information coming out with TikTok that um it's scaring people. Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't it's scaring the people in power because they know they're going to be held accountable, and things are becoming more and more out there. Like I said, with the Quiet on Set docuseries, and there's other things like that. If it wasn't for TikTok, I would never have heard it,
Right.
but I'm aware of it because of TikTok. And I know a lot of people that are in that same boat. And the politicians are scared.
Yeah.
The power players in a lot of industries are scared because they've done fucked up shit, and now they're getting exposed for doing fucked up shit.
Yeah. And then they'll complain about getting canceled. And it goes back to what I've always said. People want to complain about getting canceled as if there is a cancel council that decides who gets canceled and who doesn't get canceled. It's all about public opinion. The only way to not get canceled is not do fucked up shit. If you're going to do
Exactly.
fucked up shit, you're going to get canceled and there's no control. You can bitch and whine about it all you want, but uh, Go ahead. I want to look at something real quick because I just got an email from HVAC Jeff. Go
Oh
ahead.
God, this ought to be good. But no, you're right. Like there is no cancel council or anything. There's no group of us sitting around going, "We're canceling that person next." It's just a simple thing of somebody's done something fucked up and it's coming to light. And then once you hear about a little bit of it, the more and more you dig into it, the worse and worse it they find out it is. And holy cow, you start putting pieces together, and they don't want you doing that. They don't want you digging. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying a little bit earlier about the journalism. There isn't that hard hitting journalism that there used to be. Some of the stuff might have gotten found out 10, 15 years ago if a journalist would have just stuck to it and said, I think I believe of this person. I think there might be a story here, and kept digging and kept digging and kept digging until they got to the story. But that doesn't happen because if you can't write your story, get it out there in, 20 minutes and move on to the next news clip, people lose interest.
Yeah, they do. I want to read this series of emails from HVAC because he's such a dipshit. Um, he started out he says to me, "Start your live, let's debate." First of all, I did a live last week and the Trumplefucks took me down, so I can't do one until the 29th anyway. I may never do another TikTok live. And then he says, "I'm asking for a 1 hour debate on TikTok. You can host." And then, I didn't answer because I'm not looking at my email. And he says, "Too afraid to debate on TikTok live?" No, clearly I'm not because I already did it. And this is how I responded to him. I said, "I did what you asked, and the dumb fucks did what I expected. I know you need the attention, but I can get my own. You're a buffoon with no facts, and you offer nothing to me." And this is what he says to me: "Got it. I fulfill my side of the deal, and you won't. Says a lot about you." I was on your fucking live, motherfucker. And I respond, "I did, dumb fuck. I was on your live. Man, you're desperate for attention." And then and this is where the begging starts. He goes, "Dude, just come debate me. Stop making excuses. I dropped you because you were reported to protect you live. Come on your backup. Sheesh." I said, "What do I have to gain? I don't have a backup. I open myself up to a bunch of pussy ass bitches that can't handle the truth." And this is the last thing. This is the thing that got me to want to do this. He says, "That's the point. Don't call me out on your term. Agree to the terms, which I said, come debate me. Then get upset because I want you to uphold your side of the deal. Come on, man, debate me and be done with it. Come on, your backup account. God knows you get enough of my accounts banned." I don't have a backup
You
account.
gotta,
Never had a backup account. But do you hear the desperation and how he wants me
uh-huh.
to this guy is desperate for attention. He can't get it on his own, so he's hoping I can get it for him. He says I didn't fulfill my end of the bargain. He was calling me out. He says do a debate on TikTok live. I went on his live. He canceled everybody off his page and just did me. We went for a half hour. Then his dumb fucks fucking reported me and got me kicked off. I did my part. I did what, and I spanked the motherfucker when I did it. So I don't know why he
You
wants me
did.
to do it again. And I'm not going to do it again because I come to realize I'm putting myself at risk by going on his show. I put myself at risk doing on my own live if I could even do it. There's nothing to gain here. We
Exactly.
I just don't think he likes the fact that he lost. He knows he lost and he wants another chance and too fucking bad. He's got 3,000 followers. I got 300,000 followers. And I'm not trying to shame him for how many followers he has, but don't keep coming after me. You're stupid because all my followers or peers will bury that motherfucker. I don't even have to bury him. I don't even have to
You
ask
know,
him.
you know what's sad? I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I bet you if I go over to my TikTok, they're probably all bots, but I think I have 3,000 followers and I haven't
Yeah.
put up a single video.
And all this clown does is do lives all the time and talks circles and I don't know. It's ridiculous. But I don't know. Have you noticed this? I have noticed this. Um, the Trumplefucks. I'm seeing more Trumplefucks on my page, but they're not quite as cocky and loud. You know, those come in and say, "You're stupid. You're old. Your hair sucks." Oh, you're going to cry when Donald Trump wins. That's all they say, but they're all over the place. I don't know if it's bots or these people are feeling
Could
the
be.
pressure.
Could be either one. I've noticed just because only reason I've noticed more of it is because a few of the creators I follow interact with those people and then turn it into more free content.
Right.
Um, like the one I was watching was with Tom Powell Jr. and this dumb Trumplefuck couldn't understand. They were talking about tax revenue in the state of Illinois, and they kept saying, and Tom Powell has said repeatedly, if you get rid of Chicago and the Chicagoland area and made that its own state, the rest of Illinois would be broke, and they would
Right.
be a taker state, and they would need federal help.
Right.
And he said, and this guy could not seem to understand that 2 point something million people in the rest of the state generate less revenue than 9 million people in Illinois. So Tom made another video about how math works. I
Yeah.
don't remember quite how it all went, but basically he's like, yeah, of course, 9 million people is going to generate more tax money than 2 point whatever million in the rest of the state. That's how it works. That's simple math.
Well, Trumplefucks love to try really hard. You know, they'll go to some place like Indiana and they'll show the red blue map on there. And of course, most of the state's red and there are a few spots that are blue. See, we got more counties than you do, but there's nobody fucking there. The blue areas
Yeah,
are the ones with all the people. It's that's
Iowa's
how,
the same way.
yeah,
Iowa's the same
exactly.
way. Most of the counties have like the county I'm in. I think if the city I'm in is the biggest city in the county, and we're at like 12,000 people.
Right.
As a whole, maybe has 25,000 people. Des Moines at like 125,000 people just in the city of Des Moines.
Yeah.
That's not even counting the rest of Polk County. I mean, it's but because there's so few people out here, they cater to the Trumplefucks and the
Right.
Republicans, and that's how they win a state like Iowa because all of the population is centered in two or three spots.
Right. But when it comes to elections, it's numbers of people. That's the bottom line. It's not land area. It's not counties. It's where the most people are. That's how democracy fucking works. And apparently they don't understand that or they're grasping at something because they know they're losing. And I think that's the sense I'm getting from these people when I talk to them. They know they're losing. And they're not smart enough to back off. They just want to keep doubling down and try to argue with you. They think they can bully their way through this and win, and they can't. They're fucking losing and
No,
they're going to continue to lose.
they're made to look stupid. Speaking of looking stupid, we had an incident here just the other week here in Iowa, last weekend actually, or end of last week. They passed a budget for the state of Iowa, including a bunch of money for education. They had 45 minutes to debate or something like that. It came to the floor, but they had a strict cutoff time for when the vote had to be done by to pass this thing. And they got it passed, which and it was stupid. It was a Republican dream, but whatever. Um, the whole reason around when they had to push it through, tip off time for both the Iowa State and Drake games that were part of March Madness, because they had to give the members of Congress time to get to uh, Omaha. I think one of the games was in Omaha. One, I'm not sure where the other one was, but they had to give the members of the Iowa legislature time to get to the games and go watch basketball. That
Yeah.
was more important than actually having time to read and debate this bill, but they had to get the bill passed.
Yeah. That's, that, that's like, that's like the House of Representatives having to come up with a budget bill and they take a 2 week break just before the deadline. It's, these people think they're special and they think they're elites and they think they can get away with anything. And all of us are just supposed to take it. I just think it's becoming more clear now to people and they're getting a little fucking tired of it. I think you're probably finding people in Iowa that are getting pissed off about it too.
Oh, some, yeah, definitely. Speaking about the budget and the 2 week break, I wanted to touch on Marjorie Taylor Greene and her calling for a vote of no confidence in Speaker Johnson.
Yeah,
I've got some thoughts on that.
please.
So we got this Mike Gallagher
Right.
resigning here in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure
Right.
what the exact date, sometime in April.
April
Well,
19th.
April 19th. Okay, perfect. So we got to the 19th. Now they get back in 2 weeks, which is like April 7th or some bullshit for after their Easter break. And she brings us up for a motion to vacate the chair. Now you got 213 Democrats to 218 Republicans, I think it is. They can lose 2 votes, 2 or 3 votes to not oust the speaker. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene's automatically going to oust the speaker. Now, what if this Mike Gallagher votes to oust the speaker and all the Democrats vote to oust him? There's no speaker. They're done
Right.
again.
Right.
Okay. Well, now you only need what, I think it's 215 right now,
Right.
215 or so to elect a new speaker. Mike Gallagher, because he's leaving and he's pissed at the Republicans, could he vote for Hakeem Jeffries? He's
You,
done.
yeah.
There's nothing that stops him. And if they get just 1 or 2 more protest votes because they're sick of the bullshit, we could have Speaker Jeffries in as little as 2 to 3 weeks.
Absolutely. And, to be perfectly honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if there were more defectors. People not wanting to ride this fucking out of control train over the cliff, because that's what the Republican Party, especially in the House of Representatives, is. When Ken Buck stepped away early, he said, I'm not the last one. And now Gallagher does it. Would it be surprising if 2 more did it and we just naturally get Hakeem Jeffries as the Speaker of the House because they won't have the majority anymore?
Well, what I was thinking is what they could do is you have um they get like they vote Hakeem Jeffries in, then turn around and resign.
Yeah.
Like they help stabilize the party, or they stabilize the House as their last act, and then they're like, "Fuck it, I'm out. I'm not running for a re-election, so I'm good." And they're gone. Because now you have, the way I understand it is now with Mike Gallagher, with the timing of his resignation, nobody will replace him. His seat will be vacant until the election, is the way I understand it.
Right. Right. Yeah. If he resigned before April 2nd, there would be a special election. After April 2nd, there isn't a special election. And Mike Gallagher understood that, and he did that on purpose. He's trying to
And
make
I
a
could
point.
see potentially some of these other, if there are a few more defectors, if their states have similar laws, I could see there being multiple defectors, or if they're in a blue state or something where they think there's a chance to give the Democrats a seat. Plus, here, what is it? April 30th, I think, is the voting day for George Santos's seat. So we'll
Right.
gain a seat there. I
Right.
mean, we could potentially have a situation where a couple more defectors and we get Speaker Jeffries and flip the House mid-session.
Right.
I
Right.
don't remember the last time that has happened.
I don't remember it ever happening either. I wasn't as, aware when I was younger, but it is an unusual circumstance. And the thing about it is, it's not that surprising that they would do this because the next 7 months going up to the election is not going to be a good one for the Republicans. If you have any kind of reputation, it's just going to be sullied as long as you stick with the Republican Party. At this point, you may want to stay in politics, but if you stay in the House of Representatives, your reputation is going to be sullied just by virtue of being connected to these fucks. And it may be a way to save your soul a little bit to just bail at the last minute.
Well, I know Mike Gallagher was supposed to be some sort of a rising star. They thought he was an up and coming darling and
Yeah.
had some chances of being a big name. And he's sick of it. He walked away. Look at in the Senate, Lisa Murkowski's come out now and said she's considering switching to be an independent.
Right.
And she's even said just recently, if the choice is between Donald Trump and Joe Biden for president, she's voting for Joe Manchin. So she's throwing her vote away because she won't
Yeah.
vote for Donald Trump. I mean, I know Alaska's got ranked choice voting, so it doesn't really matter.
No.
She can primarily vote for Joe Manchin and put Donald Trump as secondary or whatever, and Donald Trump still gets her vote. But
Right.
um, it's the simple fact that she's thinking about switching to being an independent that just caucuses with the Republicans.
Well, that's it. That's the thing about Lisa Murkowski. She's trying to save some face here, but let's be honest. Lisa Murkowski is a Republican. She's in the Senate. She's from Alaska. Are you telling me that after the last 7 years, all the things you've seen now, coming up to an election, you say, well, that's too far. Now is when you're going to do this. This woman is the biggest coward I've ever seen. If you believe in something, stand up for it. And if it costs you elections, so be it. There's something to be said for telling the truth and having some credibility, but she has none. And you're going to see more people doing this other than Lisa Murkowski. They're going to try to save some face before the election, and it's not going to work. They've already had the smell of Donald Trump, the stink of Donald Trump attached to them. And they're going to have to do a lot of scrubbing over a long period of time before they get rid of that shit.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I kind of equate Lisa Murkowski to Susan Collins,
Yeah, pretty
another one
much.
who she's always concerned about something, but then still votes in lockstep with the Republicans. She'll say, "I'm concerned about whatever you say," for the opposition to whatever she's going to do, and then still votes the way they want her to.
Yeah,
Um, I think there's going to be some defections. I think you're going to see the House maybe flip mid-session, and if they do, heaven help the Republican Party, because if they could flip the House back to Democratic control, the amount of shit they are going to push through in the next few months prior going up to the election,
yeah.
it's going to be amazing. I don't know which would actually help the Democrats more though, regaining control of the House going up to the election, or letting the Republicans fail going up to the election. Neither one of those helps the Republican Party.
You know what the ironic thing is? Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to get a vote of no confidence against Mike Johnson. And the reason she wants it is because Mike Johnson had to depend on the Democrats to pass the bill. And how dare they work with the Democrats and get the bill passed? But if Marjorie Taylor Greene truly wants to oust Mike Johnson, she's going to need the help of the Democrats. It's ironic.
Yeah.
She's going to kick him out for the very thing she's fucking committing.
Oh yeah, but she doesn't see it that way. She doesn't see the irony there. All she sees is, well, my God, she's right in voting him out. And if the Democrats just happen to go along, then clearly they were right about something for once too.
Yeah. Well, she's an idiot and a buffoon. And if they do kick him out, they've got nobody to replace him. There's nobody to garner enough votes to become Speaker of the House. And like you said, the fact of the matter is they may not have to kick him out. He'll just go out by natural causes when the majority changes, because that seems almost inevitable that that's going to happen. Mike
Well,
Johnson won't be the Speaker of the House for very long, regardless of how he gets kicked out.
I mean, at most, he's going to only be the Speaker of the House till January 3rd when the new Congress gets sworn in. But something else with that too is, as there's more defections, like we said, there could be a vote of, they could easily vote in a new speaker and get Hakeem Jeffries with defections, with uh, Democrats winning seats, or plain and simple, if they call for this vote of no confidence and it passes and they have to go elect a new speaker, the margin is so thin with the Republican Party. If there's anybody gone, they could get Speaker Jeffries in with the makeup it is now, just because people weren't there to vote.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's going to
Uh,
be interesting. I wouldn't want to be a Republican right now because things are going badly. And if anybody thinks the Republicans are going to be on fire in November, you're not paying a fucking attention because they're in deep ass trouble.
The only way Republicans are going to be on fire in November is if it's literal.
Yeah, their hair on fire. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Eric, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. Thank you for coming in today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We got a lot of shit going on, and I love getting your insights on what's happening.
Well, thanks for having me. Can't wait to be back on.
All right. Well, you're welcome anytime. You know that. For those listening, I hope you I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.